Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. These days are ours. Happy days. These days are ours. Share them with me. Goodbye, gray sky, hello, blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. Feels so right, it can't be wrong. Rocking and rolling all week long. These happy days are yours and mine. These happy days are yours and mine. Happy days.
Hello, welcome to the 30-minute drill. I'm Kevin Solomon, and next to me I have the infamous Max Seidman. Max, it was a big day for the NFC on Sunday. The Giants defeated a strong Cowboy team, in which may have got them back on track. What can you tell me about that game and how it'll affect them for the rest of the season?
Well, you know, it was a really good game. I mean, the Giants, they haven't been looking too good in the past few weeks. Started off their season 5-0. I mean, went on a quite a long losing streak, lost to the Broncos 2 weeks ago. They lost last week to the Broncos. And the Giants really needed to come out of this one strong and beat the Cowboys in order to get their season back on track, and they did exactly that. Eli Manning was fantastic. Their rushing game was great. I mean, Eli was 11 for 25, which isn't a great completion to attempt ratio, but 241 yards and 2 touchdowns it was good enough to get the Giants to a win, and that's what they needed.
And talk about, this was really a game where they tried to get, their running game back on track. Talk about the job that Brandon Jacobs did and the reestablishment of the run game for the Giants.
Well, the Giants' run game, over the past few years, we've seen that the way they've always gotten it to work was the first quarter, they just pound the ball up the middle with Brandon Jacobs. Just pound it, wear down that defense, and then bring in Ahmad Bradshaw and their third running back, whoever it may be, in the second and third quarter, but continue to pound it with Brandon Jacobs. And this season, we haven't really seen that. We've seen Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw in that first quarter alternating, and it hasn't really been working out. But in this game against the Cowboys, we saw Kevin Gilbride, their offensive coordinator, really got back on track with that run game and pounded it up the middle. Brandon Jacobs was the only running back in the game in the first quarter.
And you didn't really see Brandon Jacobs running, north. You really did see him running north to south in this game, and that's what you like to see. And you also, you saw, even though he did fumble once, Ahmad Bradshaw did run really hard. He was pounding it into the defense, and he was making people, scared kind of to tackle him.
Right. The numbers show only 13 rushing attempts by Brandon Jacobs for 39 yards. Not great numbers, but it shows that he was pounding the ball up the middle, only a long of 8 yards. And then Ahmad Bradshaw, 7 attempts for 47 yards with a long of 29. So you can see that Ahmad Bradshaw's running game, those huge, big numbers are really a result of Brandon Jacobs pounding it up the middle.
And talk about the defense and a game they really needed to win. Talk about the job they did to step up and rejuvenate.
Well, it was really huge the way the Giants defense played. We haven't been seeing much ahead of them. Their new coordinator, Bill Sheridan, a lot of people have been doubting him. They're saying the Giants can't do it without their former defense coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, who's now the head coach of the Rams. But he really showed that the problem the Giants have had is that they haven't been blitzing anybody. They've been giving the quarterback all the time in the world. And in this game, the Giants really stepped it up, and they started blitzing some more. We saw the return of Kevin Dockery, one of their main cornerbacks. He was really a big part of this because, now it wasn't that usually the Giants have Aaron Ross, their former cornerback, at safety, and then they have a weak spot in the cornerback position. But now with Kevin Dockery back, they were really able to fill that hole, and they could blitz more. So it was really good.
And talk about the benching of former Pro Bowler Osi Umenyiora and how that seemed to be a little questionable at first. Talk about how that affected the defense.
Well, I really think that it made Osi realize that he really needs to start playing harder. It was sort of like, I don't know if you remember last season when Andy Reid benched Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb realized, although he may be this big star, he's got to get his game back on track. And I think that really happened to Osi. He recovered a fumble, ran it for 13 yards. He really started playing well, even though he was coming off the bench. And Giants made some substitutions. They put Jonathan Goff, one of their young linebackers, in to start during the game against the Cowboys, and he really proved to play well. The Giants had 2 big sacks on Tony Romo, and they actually had a huge 4th down stop. So this defensive line, linebacking core, and their secondary really all played well together.
And even though he leads the leagues in fumble recoveries, on defense, teams just seem to keep running the ball to his side. And I think with the benching this week, it really made him reevaluate himself and reevaluate his playing. And I think ultimately it worked out for them. Yeah. Next week the Giants play the Eagles in what is probably going to decide the NFC East. Do you see the Giants pulling off a win there, or do you see the Eagles winning and soaring to the NFC East championship?
Well, I mean, it's definitely be a close game. I think right now you've got to say that the Giants are the underdog in this game. This past week we saw the Eagles win the game. Michael Vick actually got some playing time in this game. He threw for a touchdown and ran for a touchdown. So if the Michael Vick really starts going into this offense, it might be a real big problem for the Giants defense, who, sometimes they do have trouble stopping the run game, although in this Cowboys game they held them to only 45 yards, which is really a great feat against the great Marion Barber. But if the Eagles decide that they're going to start running that Wildcat offense, it might be a really big problem for the Giants to try and stop that.
And how do you think, with the addition of Michael Vick, how do you think that may change the way Donovan McNabb plays? Maybe it doesn't, the consistency, it kind of throws it off. How does the addition of Michael Vick, what does that change to the Eagles offense?
Well, I mean, originally you had Donovan McNabb as your quarterback, Brian Westbrook as your running back. I mean, and that was really a good combination. But now, if you put Michael Vick in there, you don't know if they're going to be passing to Brian Westbrook, handing the ball off to him, or you're just going to have Michael Vick going off on an option in the Wildcat offense, running the ball down the field. I mean, it'll really be hard for teams to stop him.
Well, it's really going to be interesting to see how the NFC plays out. But we have to take a short break right now. But when we return, the 30-minute drill continues here on Channel 77. I always dreamed of being a sports commentator. That's all I ever thought about when I was little. All I ever did was practice. I guess that's the thing that means most to me, is that I want to be remembered as a commentator. I remember when I used to go to the Yankee games, I used to listen to the great Bob Shepard over the loudspeaker. It inspired me. Till this day, I can only dream of my voice being as famous as the voice of God. I guess it's just something you're born with. I guess it's something you just have to love. I live for this. Hello, sports fans. Welcome to week 8 of the 30-minute drill.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm Julian here with Max Beck, and we are going to be making playoff predictions for the NFL. All right, so I'm going to first look at the NFC East, where we had Dallas losing to the Giants, Philadelphia beating the Falcons, and Washington losing to a thriller with the Saints. So I want to talk about, is this back to the strongest division that the NFL?
I truly believe that the NFC East is now the strongest division in football, as I always have thought. The Cowboys are 8-4, the Eagles are 8-4, the Giants are 7-5, and the Redskins are at a struggling 3-9, but they are playing well. They had a close game against the Saints, went into overtime, but the Eagles are looking really strong. Cowboys played a close game against the Giants. Philadelphia and New York are playing a game this week to determine who's going to be a lock for the playoffs, possibly. And I think that eventually Philadelphia will win the division.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. The AFC South is obviously better, with Indianapolis obviously on top. Jacksonville is playing really good this year. Houston is still a very good team. And the resurgence of Tennessee really cements the whole division, which I think is unavoidable.
The NFC East has 3 teams fighting for a playoff spot. The AFC South has Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Houston's out at 5-7. I think Tennessee is out now at 5-7. I think the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants all fighting for a playoff spot makes the NFC East a stronger division than the AFC South.
I would agree with you, but the Giants, they have lost 6 of their last 7, so that's going to have to be a difference. So let's go to the NFC North. Minnesota won. Green Bay is going to play on Monday. Chicago lost, and Detroit lost. So, what do you think about that?
Minnesota loses a close game to the Arizona Cardinals. That gives them 2 losses in the season, but they're still one of the strongest teams. Favre throwing 2 picks. Looks like he might be coming back to the old Favre, where late in the season starts throwing some picks, lets a team down. I don't know if Minnesota can play well in the playoffs if Favre continues this. But Green Bay is looking strong. Right now they have the final wild card spot. They could be good in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is playing well. I think Chicago's out, Detroit's obviously out, and I think Minnesota and Green Bay, if they both make it to the playoffs, have a really good shot at going deep.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on Brett Favre. If all of you can remember, this was the same exact time last year where Brett Favre went off the wagon. So we're going to have to see how he really develops over the season. So let's go to the NFC South. New Orleans still perfect. Atlanta losing. Carolina loses. And Tampa Bay lost again. How do you feel about this division?
I have no idea whether the Saints or the Colts which one of them is a better team, but what I'd really like to see is the Saints and Colts in the Super Bowl, hopefully both going undefeated in the regular season. That would be one of the highest rated Super Bowls in the history of the NFL. But getting back to the NFC South, I think the Falcons are out, Carolina's out, Tampa's out, and New Orleans already clinching the division, has already locked up the playoffs, and I think locked up the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think both of them are going to be perfect, but I think one of them is going to be perfect. Because history tells us that no one is perfect, especially twice. So we're going to have to see how that works out. Let's go to the NFC West. Arizona leads the division. Great win over Minnesota last night. San Francisco, I believe, lost. Seattle won against the San Francisco, and St. Louis lost.
As this was last year, Arizona winning the division at 9-7. They have a mediocre season, and they always wind up winning the division with their high-powered offense and the struggling defense. But yeah, Arizona's the team that's going to win that division if San Francisco and Seattle both keep up the play that they've been playing at, which is poor. And Arizona is probably going to go 10-6, 11-5, and win the division. But they're the only team that's going to make it out of that division.
Yeah, it's a very weak division overall. Let's go really quickly to the AFC East and the AFC North. Two really good divisions, very cemented in the middle. New England leading the AFC East, Cincinnati leading the AFC North. What are your opinions on the two?
The AFC East is up for grabs this year. New England at 7-5, Miami and the Jets are at 6-6. Both the Jets and the Dolphins are both playing for a playoff spot for the wild card. The Patriots are struggling as of right now, losing 22-21 to the Dolphins on a late field goal by Dan Carpenter. The Bills are out of it, 4-8, but it looks like this division is still up for grabs. The AFC North is the wild card spot between the Ravens and the Steelers are at 6-6. Surprisingly, the wild card's up for grabs between them. But Cincinnati, I think, locked up that division surprisingly, running behind Cedric Benson, and I think Cincinnati's probably going to win that division, and the wild card's up for grabs.
All right, thanks, Max. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we will have Steve and Doug with the predictions previewing the bowl selections.
And that's the game. That is the game. Your Wayne Hills Patriots beat the Northern Highlanders 4-1. There was pandemonium at Patriot Stadium. Wayne Hills 4, Northern Highlands 1.
Hi, I'm Steve Rubin. Welcome back to the 30-Minute Drill. I'm here with Doug Schweibel. We're going to talk today about college football, how the conference championships are over, and now it's time to get ready for the bowl games. Most importantly, this weekend we have the Heisman Trophy winner will be announced, and let's talk about the Heisman race. Who do you think will win the Heisman?
My Heisman favorite is definitely Namaka Suh, the defensive tackle out of Nebraska. He played great in the Big 12 championship. He's been my favorite player ever since he stepped foot on that field. But I really think Ingram's going to win with that big game over Florida to take the SEC championship that nobody thought he had it in him. But 28 carries for 113 yards and 3 TDs, that's a big game.
I would love to see Sue win it, a defensive player winning the Heisman. It's rare, especially a defensive tackle.
Yeah, you don't really see that because the last person to do it was Charles Woodson. He played offense too.
Yeah, but it'd be great to see him win it. I got to go with, you always got to think about Colt McCoy and Tim Tebow. Tebow's a former winner 2 years ago, and McCoy has been up for it. Now this is his second time up for it, and they both had great years. But I don't think either one of them really had a spectacular year that could win them the Heisman, like Ingram had, like Sue had.
Tebow definitely, I don't know, the Alabama loss really hurt his chances because he was always thought as the great American quarterback. He was always thought that this year that Florida was going to go on, win the national championship, and everything would happen in that order. But it just went wrong, and Alabama upset them very badly and beat them 32-13. And Tebow threw for an interception and just overall didn't play well, and that'll hurt his draft stock as well.
Well, I don't think his draft stock. People have always been questioning him professionally-wise. Next, we have to talk about the Notre Dame job. Charlie Weiss fired, and obviously there are huge names up for Stoops, Kelly, Harborough, even Urban Meyer out of Florida. Who do you think?
I think those are definitely the top 4 choices, but I think Jim Kelly would walk on his hands and knees for that job through broken glass in order to get that Notre Dame job. He fits the profile. He built a great franchise in Central Michigan, and now he built a 12-0 season at Cincinnati. He doesn't want to stay at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a basketball school. He doesn't want to stay there. He wants to go to a football school, and there's no bigger football school than Notre Dame.
It's true. Jim Kelly has been trying to build that program up. They actually started renovation on a new practice facility and a new practice field, but I still don't think whatever they can do, they can't keep him because Kelly will get so much more money, so much more prestige at the Notre Dame job.
Brian Kelly, I think, is going to get the job.
I think Urban Meyer and Bob Stoops both coach great programs. Oklahoma and Florida, they always compete for national championships. I don't think either one of them would leave for Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been falling every year, even with Jimmy Clausen, who was the #1 high school recruit.
Well, but I really don't think Urban Meyer is going to leave because he has a great thing going for him in Florida. But Bob Stoops in Oklahoma has gotten really tired of that school. He hasn't won a national championship since the 90s. He's gotten the great prospects such as Bradford, but they've gone down with injuries and they've lost in the championship. He just hasn't gotten to that next level. And I think knowing as a person, the same thing happening over and over again, not winning a championship, not succeeding, will get old and he'll want to leave to Notre Dame.
I agree. And now let's look at the Florida State situation right now. Bobby Bowden, obviously one of the greatest coaches in college football history, leaves, and they hire Jimbo Fisher, who had been planned out. But can Jimbo Fisher continue what Bobby Bowden built?
Well, Jimbo Fisher definitely has some work to do. Florida State, with the winningest team in the 90s with Bobby Bowden, won 2 national championships in 93 and 99. Just a great team overall. But this year was definitely a disappointing year, starting at number 20 and ending not even in like one of the lower bowls at 6-6. Bobby Bowden, Jimbo Fisher has some big shoes to fill with Bobby Bowden, the second winningest coach in all of football. But it really shows you that if Jimbo Fisher really does really well or he does really bad, it can also affect Bobby Bowden's good friend in Penn State, Joe Paterno, and what his future is determined by. Because if Jimbo Fisher, if the young coach really shows up the old coach, then Penn State might think about firing Joe Paterno.
I don't think anyone can fire Joe Paterno. He's Joe Pa. He's an unbelievable coach. He's just the presence on the sideline is just unbelievable. I can't see much. Now, your quick prediction on Texas, Alabama in the national championship.
Texas, Alabama. I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I think Tebow's going to have to run for over 100 yards against this great Alabama. Cole McCoy, I'm sorry. Cole McCoy is going to have to run for a good 100 yards against this great Alabama defense led by Lorando McClain. But he's going to have to throw for some TDs. Jordan Shipley's going to have to help them on the punt and kick return. But I think Alabama, with Mark Ingram's just going to take it over the SEC, over the Big 12 yet again.
Thank you. Stay tuned for Andrew Monaghan and Chris Massood with the High School Football Weekly.
Ever since we started a 30-minute drill, security's been a major problem.
The security stinks.
I think we found a solution for this problem.
Hey, Brian.
What's going on, John? Let me see your pass. Okay, you can go through.
See you, man.
Oh, man, 5 minutes.
Butwin, you got a pass?
Nah, I lost that pass in the hole. Come on, B-Ross. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill.
I deny you entrance.
Oh, snap.
Hi, welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm your host, Andrew Monaghan, alongside with my buddy Chris Massood. Chris, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Andrew?
Pretty good. We're talking Wayne Hills football. You know, just coming off, going into a big game into the state championship, playing Ramapo in the snow on December 5th. It's supposed to be a big game, a lot of anticipations, and the Patriots unfortunately come up short, 16-8. You know, they were going for their 6th straight state title, which would have been a New Jersey record. Kudos to both teams. I mean, they played a hard game. I mean, it's tough out there with the weather conditions and everything. And what's your opinion on this game?
I mean, what's better than playing at Giant Stadium on a Saturday night with snow falling down? I mean, it doesn't really get better than that. Ramapo just came out to play. They came ready to play. Wayne Hills was quiet in the beginning. I mean, that's just how it was. That's just how it was.
You know, some would question the play calling made by Coach Olson. I mean, I agree with what you said. Patriots did look a little flat in the first half. You know, the Raiders come out early, I think, on their second offensive drive with, actually on the first offensive drive, their starting running back, Jesse Devinchuk, who rushed for 250 yards in his first playoff game, 500 yards in 2 playoff games. So that's 250 apiece. Obviously, the big playmaker on their team. He gets taken out in the first drive, I think, with a knee injury. He's out for the game. Seemed like all hope was lost for Ramapo at that point, but I mean, Ramapo didn't give up. And on their second drive, they looked to their backup running back, Scott Kunzel, stepping in for Devinchuk, and really turned things around. They went up for 7-0. They went up 7-0.
Yeah, I mean, Ramapo, after the loss of the running back, they came out. They said we need to do something, I guess, to beat this team without our star player. So they put their backups in, and their backups did the job.
I really give them props on that. Yeah. I mean, most teams would fold in a situation like that. I know if we were to lose some of our key guys, such as Dowling or Quinn or a lot of other guys, it'd be hard for us to bounce back from a situation like that. But I mean, for them, their big player goes out, and just another guy steps up and fills the gap. I mean, it was a poor job, I would say, by the Patriots in the first half. Offensive line didn't seem to block. I think the Raiders had about four sacks in the first half. The defense was just not working out. I mean, people were missing tackles all over the place. Like you saw on the Raiders' second touchdown, Sean Mernier got caught a ball in the flat and runs up the sideline for probably about a 35-yard touchdown pass, which shouldn't have happened. I mean, he had 2 guys on one. I mean, can you just tell me what happened with the Patriots defense?
I mean, the snow must have caught their footing or something. They just cracked down. Everyone was, I don't know. I really don't. I can't tell you what happened. I mean, I know that that Ramapo just stuck it to him, and Patriots couldn't hold on. They couldn't.
I mean, it was a long series of mistakes all game. I mean, all right. So then the Raiders go 14-0. That's bad. And then we forced a punt out of our own end zone, and the ball goes right through punter Timmy Divers' hands, and that's a safety. And then the Raiders are up 16-0. I mean, everything that possibly could have gone wrong in a big game went wrong.
That's right.
I mean, after halftime, you figure they'd come out a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
Brian Dowling takes one in for a touchdown, and they get the 2-point conversion. So, the game ends on 16-8. I mean, the only thing that seems to be, Mike Quinn is having his worst game of his career, I would think. I mean, he's doing great all season, his entire career here at Wayne Hills. Unfortunately, I guess the weather might have just gotten to him. Goes 5 for 25 at 13 yards, and his longest pass was 9. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But what bothers me is the Patriots kept throwing the ball. Nick Massey had 5 rushes for 34 yards and a 20-yard long run. I mean, why didn't they run the ball more?
I don't know. I mean, Coach Ocean's play calling was not very keen that day. I mean, it's all the answers are there. You give the ball to Omar Manasra, he breaks a 27-yard run. Like, why would you
on their
just
trick
keep
play? I know from knowing the Patriots playbook, they have a lot more trick plays. And with the one with Omar, they used the trick play, got him the biggest gain of the game. That's their biggest 27 yards. That was their longest rush of the game. I don't know why Olsen with his with his big football mind, didn't pull out more of his trick plays when seeing that would work. I don't know why he kept forcing Quinn to throw and make mistakes and kept putting him deeper and deeper into a hole. I didn't understand that.
I mean, you even got your star wide receiver, Mike Drees, with 1 reception for 9 yards the whole game. People were dropping balls left and right. The weather conditions were not there for passing. That was a strictly running game.
I think if this game were to be turned around in the Patriots' favor, it had to be won on special teams. But like we said before, we established the fact that Patriots didn't make mistakes. The defense didn't work well. Offense couldn't produce. I think special teams was where it was going to be won. And unfortunately, late in the game, balls kept going over their punter's head. At one point, we recovered a fumble, but he got it off another time. Another time, he ran and almost got the first down. This is all contained. I mean, I know that the Raiders, on their special teams, always put their reserve guys. It's never, their starting 11 and everything like that. I mean, we should have been able to win the game on special teams. I noticed that the coaches put in a punt block and only put one guy back to catch a punt at one point. Why would you do that if it's snowing out? You're not going to run as fast as you can. You're not going to block the ball, and you're going to have one guy back, and then you're going to be down inside on your own territory. Can you explain that?
It just doesn't make sense. Nothing was there that day. That day was just not a great day for Wayne Hill's Patriots. I mean, you have one great punt return by Andrew Monaghan, 18 yards was his longest. So I mean, you had a great punt return as well. So I mean, but nothing was there. No connections. It wasn't the Wayne Hills team I'm normally seeing every week.
That's exactly right. It wasn't the Wayne Hills team that we've seen. I mean, unfortunately, it's a sad end to a really good season. Finishing off 10-2, only losing to Ramapo and St. Joe's, which are two highly competitive programs, and they're very good. Hopefully, they can come back next year and make a new name for themselves. I mean, obviously, this year ended the streak. Lost the state championship this year. This ends the streak for the state championships. Next year's got to be big. They got to come back with a lot more senior leadership, a lot more emotional leadership on the team. So we look forward to that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Thank you for joining us here on the 30-minute drill. And be sure to tune. Thank you for joining us here on the 30-minute drill, and be sure to tune in next week.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. These days are I'm being free. Happy days. These days are share them with me. Goodbye, gray sky, hello, blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. Feels so right. It can't be wrong, rocking and rolling all week long. These happy days are yours and mine. These happy days are yours and mine. Happy days.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the concluding episode of the 30-minute drill. More on that to come, but first, let's break down the Giants and Redskins game from Monday night. The first quarter, the Giants finally set the tone and scored a touchdown in the first quarter, breaking that streak of not scoring in the first quarter. How important was that for them to score in the first quarter and really set the tone?
It was extremely important. You always want to come out and get a lead, and the Giants came out ready to play, and the Redskins looked like they weren't ready to play at all. And it gave them, they scored in the first drive, really gets the team into it, and from then on they just went right through the Redskins.
Yeah, they just rolled right through that after that. All season, everyone's been looking for the Giants to really have that breakout game on defense. It really hasn't come down to one player. It's really been the whole defense. And in this game, they really got a lot of pressure on Jason Campbell. They had a couple of sacks. Was this their breakout game?
Yeah, I think it was. Their defense hasn't lived up to what it's been hyped to be this year. OC hasn't been as good as he usually is. Justin Tuck hasn't been good as he usually is. The secondary has been really weak, but this game should bring a lot of confidence to the defense, only holding them to 13 points, getting a lot of pressure, and making it look easy, especially on offense, too. They came out with a good game plan, and they just did what they wanted to on the Redskins defense.
And, they have had a lot of injuries, but really that's no excuse when, you get paid to play the game of football and you're supposed to, provide, you're supposed to play well every game. And the Giants, for a team that has, former Pro Bowlers across the line, it was really disappointing to see their performance this far this season. But hopefully after this, they really step it up and they continue to play well. Now, it was 24-0 going into halftime. The Giants had all the momentum. The Redskins were about to kick a field goal, could have made it 24-3, maybe give them a little momentum going into halftime. Can you explain to us what happened there? There was a trick play of some sort. No one really knows what happened there. What happened there?
Well, I really don't know what they were trying to do. They come out in a field goal formation, then they motioned pretty much their whole line of scrimmage to the left side, and then the kicker became the quarterback, and they motioned another guy to the left. So there ended up being around 7 or 8 receivers to the left and 2 blockers, and they hiked in. Only 1 or 2 guys went out to catch the ball, and the kicker just lobbed it up and almost got taken back for a touchdown.
And it's really a risky play there. You have all your linemen on the field. Giants have, their defense, which consists of obviously defensive backs who obviously intercepted the ball. And I haven't seen too many linemen who are faster, who can outrun defensive backs. And in that situation with the interception, they could have easily run it back, making the score even worse. I really don't see why you wouldn't just kick the ball and take the points there. Interesting coaching decision.
Yeah, if you kick the ball, you're still down 21 points, but now you're only down 3 scores. And I don't know if you really expect your kicker to throw the ball 30, 35 yards down the field accurately. And
in triple coverage.
Yeah, and you got 2 blockers trying to block 5 guys coming at you full speed. I don't know how a kicker is supposed to put points up for you.
Very interesting play, to say the least.
Definitely.
Now, after this thrashing, do you see the Giants making the playoffs?
Their chances are very high. They're only 1 game behind the Packers and the Cowboys. And they swept the Cowboys this year, which is extremely important because if they tie them, they have the tiebreaker. And the Cowboys have an extremely tough game coming up against the Eagles, which I see the Eagles winning, who have been on a huge hot streak lately. So I think the Giants will make the playoffs at 10-6.
Yeah. Now you say they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do you say they go anywhere in the playoffs if they make it?
It'd be tough for them because their defense has been so inconsistent, and the offense in the red zone hasn't been as good as it's been in years. So I see them losing in the first round.
Now, if they are to make the playoffs and if they are to succeed, what is their key to winning the remaining of their games and making it far in the playoffs?
Defense in the running game. That's what the NFL is about. Defense wins championships, and when you can slow teams down and you can run the ball on offense, that opens up everything. You get the running game going, it opens up the passing game, and then it keeps the defenses off balance. They don't know what's coming for you.
And with the way they've played on Monday night, the way they've pretty much played the last few games, with the exception of maybe the Eagles game, they've been playing pretty well. And it kind of dates back to the year they won the Super Bowl. They weren't really a dominant team. They really came on at the end of the season with that last Patriots game at the end of the regular season where they came close and almost beat them. That really, even though they didn't win that game, I feel like that still gave them the confidence they needed, that pushed them through the playoffs, that ultimately gave them their Super Bowl championship.
Yeah, if they come out like they played against Redskins they looked fired up and their defense plays that well and their offense moves the ball like that, they could be a big threat in the playoffs.
It sure is going to be interesting to see how this NFL season ends up. Well, we're going to take a short break. Let's head over to Ryan Katine with Ryan's 60 Seconds of Unusual Sports. Ryan, what do you have on the oily lanes for us on the bowling lanes?
Thanks, Kevin. Hello, I'm Ryan Katine, and this is my last broadcast for the world of unusual sports. And I am ending with my favorite segment, bowling. In bowling on Sunday, in the PBA World Finals, in the semifinal round, Tom Smallwood played Bill O'Neill. Bill O'Neill, a well-known PBA player, lost to Tom Smallwood 211 to 159. Bill O'Neill wasn't able to get any breaks that game. He just couldn't find the shot. And then Tom Smallwood went on to play Wes Malott in the finals. Tom Smallwood was an unknown, unemployed bowler who last year did not make a lot of money. And this year coming in, he was able to prove himself, and he was able to beat Wes Malott 245 to 228. He did a great job there, and it went up to the 10th frame when they both needed to strike out. Wes Malott, if he would have struck out, he would have got a 248 and would have beat Tom Smallwood by 3 pins. But he got stuck with the 10 pin, which made him lose the match, unfortunately. But good for Tom Smallwood, the unemployed man, was able to make some money and get in. This match was very close at the end, and Tom Smallwood really earned what he deserved. He won a prize of $50,000, and Wes Malott, a really well-known last year's Player of the Year, won $25,000 for second place. This is my last broadcast. Thank you guys, and back to the set.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, we have to take a short break, but when we return, more 30-minute drill after this. I always dreamed of being a sports commentator. That's all I ever thought about when I was little. All I ever did was practice. I guess that's the thing that means most to me, is that I want to be remembered as a commentator. I remember when I used to go to the Yankee games, I used to listen to the great Bob Shepard over the loudspeaker. It inspired me. Till this day, I can only dream of my voice being as famous as the voice of God. I guess it's just something you're born with. I guess it's something you just have to love. I live for this. Hello, sports fans. Welcome to week 8 of the 30-minute drill.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm Steve Rubin here with Doug Schweibel to talk about this week's Heisman finalist announcement of Mark Ingram, the sophomore running back out of Alabama. Doug, what is your take?
I really think he deserves it. He had a great season. I really think that game against Florida definitely earned it for him. But I really think that Toby Gerhart was the most dominating player at his position, which the Heisman Trophy is supposed to go to. But I don't know. I can get a vote this year.
Toby Gerhart was definitely, my opinion, for the Heisman. More rushing yards than Ingram, more rushing touchdowns, more rushing attempts. But most people said, look where Ingram's playing, look where Gerhart's playing. But I don't think you can say that USC's in that conference with Gerhart. Oregon, and he dominated every single one of them. He's 235 pounds, and I love his style of running.
Gerhart really is a great player. He dominated when the games really mattered. He had averaged over 200 yards versus ranked opponents. In the USC game, he absolutely manhandled that USC defense. Against Oregon, absolutely ran all over them. But really, the 8-4 record in the Pac-10 really speaks against the 12-0 Alabama team that beat Florida in the SEC championship.
I agree. Alabama, I still agree that Mark Ingram won the Heisman when he beat Alabama so badly, rushing 113 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. One person who I followed very much through the season and into the Heisman was Ndamukong Suh.
Ndamukong Suh is basically, everybody falls in love with him once they see tapes of him. He just gives it all in every play, very dominating in that Big 12 Texas game, but they lost by a second. If that second were taken off the clock, Nebraska would have won. And in turn, Ndamukong Suh might have won the Heisman.
One thing I found out this weekend watching all the Heisman and the award ceremonies, which he won 3, was how he played soccer till 8th grade. And his dad was a professional soccer player, and he was named after his grandfather, who was 7'3".
Well, those are some good genes for some athletic genes, but I really think if you watch his tapes, even when he didn't make the big play, he was always brushing through those offensive tackles and getting through that center to get to that quarterback to make those big plays.
He's going to be great in the NFL. I can't wait to see that.
Top 5 pick.
Yeah. And then obviously the duo of Colt McCoy and Tim Tebow, the two guys who coming into this year, everyone said it was Colt McCoy, Sam Bradford, Tim Tebow. Obviously Bradford goes down with an injury. And Colt McCoy and Tim Tebow finished in 3rd and last.
You could really see how Tim Tebow just wasn't Tim Tebow this year. He did, even though they went undefeated until the SEC championship game. You really didn't think like he was dominating as much as he did in his sophomore and junior year. Also, Colt McCoy had a sensational year, but he still didn't. In the Big 12 championship, he didn't dominate like you thought he would. He always was in the shadow of Bradford and Tebow, but now it was time to shine. He couldn't shine that much, and he lost. He came in 3rd in the closest Heisman ever.
Yeah, it was tough to see them both go down like that, but I think they both knew it coming in that they weren't going to win it. It was just great to be invited. It's an honor to be invited there. Mark Ingram, I have to say, though, his reaction was something that you don't normally see out of Heisman guys. Bradford last year, Tebow the year before that. they seemed to be very calm and relaxed and almost knowing that they're going to win. Ingram was in tears from the time he won it.
He's a very emotional guy, wears his heart out on his sleeve, but like, it's a big award. A lot of emotions are set in place, but I feel for him. He had a great season. He earned it, and that's all I can say.
He was Alabama's first Heisman winner, and that speaks a lot for how many great players they've had
Sean
before.
Alexander, so many great players out of there.
Even during the Bear Bryant years, it's hard to believe that he's their first Heisman Trophy winner.
It's weird.
But his year was definitely unbelievable, and he'll be back next
year. Third straight sophomore to win the Heisman. Before Tebow, there weren't any Heismans that were sophomores.
I think it's becoming. I think though that was because they didn't expect much out of sophomores, Tebow, Bradford, or Ingram, and now they got to learn sophomores got to watch out for. And as they grew up, Tebow was obviously focused on many defenses. So was Bradford's passing arm, and so was Ingram. And Ingram will be in the future.
Ingram's got to now focus on trying to beat a bitter Colt McCoy and Texas team this next in the BCS championship game, because it's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a great game, yeah. With Ndamukong Suh, I also want to bring up that he won 3 awards Thursday night. The Outland Trophy winner, which goes to the most dominant interior lineman. The Lombardi Award, which goes to the most dominant defensive lineman. And the Bednarik Award, which goes to the most dominant defensive player, all on Thursday night. Seemed like he was up on that stage more than the announcer.
Yeah. Also, Colt McCoy won the Quarterback of the Year, the Davey O'Brien Award. And surprisingly enough, Toby Gerhardt took away the Doak Walker Award, which was the best running back, when it didn't go to Mark Ingram, who won the Heisman. That really confused me a lot.
These 2 running backs were the best in college football in decades, probably since, you can't even say Reggie Bush's year because there was no one competing with them. But, it was an unbelievable year for these 2 running backs, and I can't wait to see what they do at the next level.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know that Heisman winners in the next level don't do pretty well. In the past 5 years, only one has none of the Heisman winners have a starting job in the NFL. And
closest one being Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
And everyone expected him to dominate the NFL. He has not dominated yet.
Yeah, but he was a great college player.
Unbelievable college player. Well, thank you for joining us here in the 30-minute drill. We'll be right back with Max and Julian with the NFL football. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm Julian here with Steve Rubin, and we're going to be looking at the NFL playoff picture. First, I want to see the AFC East. New England up top, but not really showing too much over the past few weeks. Miami and the New York Jets are also on the wings. So what do you think about this division? I think it's going to be a tough race, but not for need to put Kellen Clemens in to get the win. If they want the wild card, they need Kellen Clemens. They need a veteran in there to do the job. Miami, I can see them finishing off very well, getting the wild card and doing everything they need to do. New England, it's Bill Belichick. He's going to get into the playoffs. He always finds a way.
I'm really going to have to disagree with you on the New York Jets. This week, Kellen Clemens really didn't look good at all. And over the past few weeks, Mark Sanchez has really shown signs of improvement with his arm and his accuracy and turnover ratio.
It's not important for a quarterback to see how good their stats were. It's about the W. Kellen Clemens comes in his first start of the year, gets the W, 26-3
against the Tampa Bay Bucks.
But it's still
a team that's 1-11.
The Jets, the way the Jets have been struggling, I could still see them with Sanchez losing that game with how many picks he throws and how many fumbles he has.
I can't see them losing that game where the defense was just absolutely amazing.
What they need to do, I think, still in the playoffs, they need a veteran quarterback.
All right, so let's look at the AFC North. Cincinnati up top, they're probably going to win the division, and Baltimore and Pittsburgh in the wings.
Pittsburgh's obviously not going to do it right now. They're 6-7. I think they've realized that they're playing for respect now. They're defending Super Bowl champs. Finishing with a possible 6-10 record is not an option. They need to show that they're still a good team. Injuries just cost them so much this year. Baltimore, I can't see them making the wild card. I don't think they're that amazing. Ray Rice is showing improvement, which will help them with Willis McGahee in the future. Flacco is a pretty good quarterback. He's still a young quarterback, though. And I easily see Cincinnati being the only team out of this division this year to go to the playoffs.
I'm going to have to agree with you on Cincinnati, and I really do want to see where Pittsburgh goes throughout the rest of this year because a former Super Bowl team of last year, and they're not even going to make the playoffs. It's really disappointing for everyone in the whole NFL. So let's look at the AFC South, where the Indianapolis Colts are just dominating, and you have Jacksonville and Tennessee right under them.
Tennessee, too little, too late. Vince Young's shown great year this year, but if they put him in earlier, maybe they'd be fighting for the race right now. They're not. They need to show how their speed wins. So Vince Young's probably the fastest quarterback in the NFL, while Chris Johnson's the fastest man in the NFL. And the Colts will obviously 13-0, though they'll take it up, and they'll win the division easily. There's no doubt in my mind they'll probably win the AFC. And then you had Jacksonville. I still don't see Jack Del Rio's there, and he's not a good coach. Fire Del Rio, and maybe I can see him making the playoffs.
Yeah, I really like what Tennessee has done with the Tony Sparano system of the Miami Dolphins, where they're just basically doing Wildcat all the time, which has really improved their team from being a 1-6 team to a 6-7 team, where they're now just winning almost every game. So on that note, let's go to the AFC West, where San Diego is right now on top with Denver right next to them, but then you have the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs just not doing good at all.
Those two franchises need to figure out a way to fix it. I think the easy fix for Raiders is for Al Davis to drop his responsibilities as owner and CEO. And Kansas City, they're a building team. They had problems this year with Larry Johnson. Matt Castle will build them eventually. But for the playoff race with Denver and Oakland, it's always a great race between those two teams. This year, though, I could see San Diego taking the division, but Denver definitely being in there with the wild card. I think they're both very good teams. They'll fight it out in the playoffs, I can even see.
Yeah, I really love what the Kansas City Chiefs has done in the draft for the past 2 years, really trying to build up a program that could be very respectable in the next maybe 2 or 3 years. It's almost like a comparison to the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA.
They're really building up. Tyson Jackson, I loved him in the NFL draft last year. He's so big, so strong, so fast. And Glenn Dorsey the year before that, it seems like they have an LSU connection right now, but they're really building their defensive line. I think the switch to the 3-4 was a mistake. I don't think Glenn Dorsey's a great defensive end in the 3-4, but the 4-3 I think would be the better decision for them.
Most definitely. All right, so let's look at the NFC East. Philly in the lead and Dallas right next to them with the Giants also in the wild card.
New York Giants, can't see them win the wild card. They're not playing well in the fourth quarter, and that's going to cost them later. For the Dallas Cowboys, I could see them doing it. They're a good enough team. Wade Phillips needs to get on his players. He needs to tell Tony Romo, Roy Williams, Jason Witten that this is your year to win it and take it and get in the playoffs. They have 3 games left, 3 hard games: New Orleans, Washington, and Philadelphia. And they win them all. They could be winning the division. But right now, Philly, I can see definitely winning the division. Deshaun Jackson and Donovan McNabb's connection has just been unbelievable all year.
I'm going to have to agree with you on Dallas. They definitely need to learn how to play in December, or else they're not going to go anywhere for the next few years. They've lost in the playoffs whenever they got there, and in December, they've always collapsed. And the New York Giants, they're just playing despicable football ever since they've lost to the New Orleans Saints. I mean, how could you go from 5-0 to 7-6?
It's not a great situation down there.
All right, so that's it for us right now. We're going to be back with Chris Massood and Andrew Monaghan after this.
3rd and 5 for the Indians from their own 37-yard line. Fly rolls out to the right side of the field, getting pressured by Drake. As the pass is intercepted by Jeremiah Kale. Kale to the 40, does that to the right side of the field. He's got blocking downfield to the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Patriots. Jeremiah Kale, his 10th interception of the season, takes it back for a touchdown as the Patriots take a 6-0 lead.
Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. I'm Julian here with Steve Rubin, and we are going to be looking at the MLB hot stove so far, and we're going to see some of the trades that have happened so far and some of the rumors that are stirring up. All right, so let's look at the big trade this year so far. The Phillies got Roy Halladay, Mariners get Cliff Lee, and Toronto finally gets rid of that gaping contract that Roy Halladay has. So what do you think about this trade?
I still think the Blue Jays were the worst team in the trade. They gave up their ace pitcher for 3 minor leaguers who you don't even know if they're going to be playing in the MLB next year. While the Phillies got the best part of it with Roy Halladay and three young minor leaguers and $6 million in cash. So they got the best part of the trade. And the second best would probably be the Mariners with Cliff Lee. That brings great pitching to them and builds up their struggling franchise.
I really like what the Mariners did this year, where they got Cliff Lee and virtually just gave up some medium-level prospects. I really think that the Phillies also did really good with this. I mean, they got rid of Kyle Drabeck, who everyone thought was going to be the next great pitcher, but they still got Roy Halladay, who was definitely the best pitcher in the league this year. So do you think that the Phillies could go back to their World Championship form?
Not this year. I don't think so. If they couldn't do it last year against the Yankees, I don't think they'll be able to do it this year.
I'm going to have to disagree on you with that because they have probably the best offense in this league, and their pitching has just improved. It is amazing how good the Phillies could be, just if their relieving just stays up.
I don't think the difference between Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay is that big. So I really don't see the difference in that team changing very much over the next year.
All right, so let's look at some rumors that are going around. John Lackey apparently signs with the Red Sox for $85 million over the past for the next 5 years. So how good are they now?
That really helps them. John Lackey, Montezuka, Josh Beck, all 3 of those pitchers now, they'll have one of the best rotations in baseball. And I can't see it changing. They'll obviously compete with the Yankees throughout the season, and that race is always going to be one of the best races in baseball.
Yeah, I want to see how the Yankees are able to hit off John Lackey, see if that offense could really just put a dent in them. And this really is a very interesting signing for the Red Sox because they now have 3 dominant pitchers in their rotation.
I think the true question is how will John Lackey react to the New York Yankee offense? Mark Teixeira, Alex Rodriguez, all those great hitters on one lineup, and the rivalry itself, it's intimidating.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest rivalry in this whole baseball. So let's talk about Jason Bay, who's reportedly really getting into some serious talks with the New York Mets. Mets really struck out with John Lackey not being able to get him. So what do you think about this?
I think Jason Bay has an ego right now. He's turned down a lot of offers, and I think he's just using the Mets as a way to get a better offer because the Mets are a struggling team right now. And they may have the money to do something, but I think Jason Bay wants to win. I think he has a huge ego. I really don't think he's good enough to do what he's doing right now.
Ego, I'm not sure about, but he's definitely having a pretty good year if you're talking about his paycheck, where he's probably going to get a very substantial offer from the New York Mets, where they definitely are desperate to getting him because without getting John Lackey, now all they could do is basically bring in a mid-level starting pitcher, and they're going to have to find some really good offense. And probably the best offensive player here is Jason Bay or Matt Holliday.
I think Jason Bay is using the Mets as a bidding war, and we'll see what happens with him. I think the Mets, he may end up with the Mets. May not be happy about it, but I think he'll end up with the Mets.
All right, let's look at the Mariners as a whole. They got Cliff Lee, and they got Sean Figgins, which is a great 5-way player.
I think them as a whole will though they're trying to build up that franchise, but it's going to be tough. It's obviously tough in the AL. You always have to beat the Yankees. You have to beat the Angels. You have to beat the Red Sox to get to the World Series. But that's what they're hoping for right now.
Yeah. Speaking about World Series hero, Hideki Matsui signed with the Mariners' chief rival, the Angels.
Yeah. Matsui with the Angels, bad move in my opinion. Waste of cap salary. because right now they have Vladimir, who's playing the DH because he can't field, and Matsui can't field. His knees are too bad.
Yeah, I think if they're just going to have 2 DHs, that's not really a good idea. I really wish that Vladimir Guerrero could still play in the field, even though his knees were pretty much shot. I mean, a few years ago, he was probably the best fielder in the game.
It's hard to get old in baseball.
Definitely. Yankees got Granderson from the Detroit Tigers.
Great move. That really helps our outfielders because obviously at the end of last season, the big question was Damon Matsui. Who are you going to keep? Who are you going to let go? Damon's getting older. Matsui can't field anymore. Well, they got rid of Matsui and they put Granderson, who can field and hit. They're working on him with hitting. He had 140 strikeouts last year, so they're trying to stop the strikeouts and get him more into I think he's going to be hitting 5 or 6 with them right now.
2 things I worry about is Austin Jackson. He's leaving the New York Yankees, which I thought was a very good prospect. And Curtis Granderson, he strikes out a lot.
The strikeout problem, the hitting coach has already addressed, and he's working with him on it. They brought him in right away to work on it. And Austin Jackson, it's the New York Yankees. They're going to find another prospect. They're going to buy someone out, and they always find a way.
Yeah, but I really wanted to see the New York Yankees build their prospects like they have in the 90s and the 80s, where they started to get really good.
Coming into New York as a young player, especially with the New York Yankees, is hard because you're a young player. If you have a couple good games, I don't think I'm going to be expecting a lot out of you. The New York press is hard to handle for a young player like that. So maybe if he does well in the future, the Yankees will be knocking down on his door.
All right. Well, that's it for us right now. We're going to be back after this.